Welcome to the Authentic Human Podcast. Thank you for being here. Today I'm going to talk about grief and the powerful role that grief plays in your life if you allow it or when you allow it. I received an email from a viewer, and she was sharing her recent experience of losing her best friend and very shortly thereafter losing her mother. And she was still within 2 months of this pain, this grief, and this suffering. And I could feel the energy. And it was very fascinating because this beautiful message came through. And it said, grief is the journey we must travel to become whole. And there was such beautiful awareness with that, awareness on a soul level, but also I could see what happens when we stall that process, when we stall that grief process. So we stay in the longing of the old, right? So grief occurs when the world we thought we were going to be living stops. The world we thought we were going to be living in, the experiences we thought we would have, the people we thought we would have them with, when some dynamic of our life ends, grief must occur before the new can be built. And what I loved is it's such a reflection of what's going on in the world right now. There's devastating experiences that have been going on for forever, really, for thousands of years. But what we're seeing over the last 4 or 5 years is causing us to consistently challenge it's the consistent challenges. What is our future going to look like? Who are we going to be? And how are we going to be that person? How can we do it? And this is why so many people are feeling overwhelmed, lost, alone, because the old is being torn down. We are seeing secrets, for lack of a better word. We're seeing the things that have been covered up. And whether it's, dynamics that we can't fully accept, like the recognition that the governments who we've always believed were there to watch over us and protect us have actually been causing us harm in one way or another, whether it's through the medical system, the education system, the financial system, the religious system. It's hard to believe that someone or something, an agency, if you will, if you've believed your whole life, they have your back and you're meant to trust them. And then the realization comes out that you can't. You have to grieve that loss. And when we don't grieve, we stay in the anger, right? Because anger is fear. Anger comes out, it manifests when there's immense fear that hasn't been dealt with, when we don't really actually look at the cause, okay? And why I can see all of this in the moment that I was writing this email and I was replying was because it's the same dynamic. Okay. Like when you lose someone, whether, it's a friendship that you choose to go in different directions. Right now, I know I'm going through something in my own life where it's not that I've lost a human, but there's a dynamic that has to end. And I had to make that choice, and I had to speak that choice out loud. And, it's a dynamic that's gone on for years. And I loved it. And I genuinely believed that it was nurturing and nourishing on all fronts. And there was a moment when I realized, it's not full and complete, and it's not really serving my best interests or the vision that I have for my life and my family. And it's in these moments of recognition that fear comes up. And it's the fear that's challenging us to say, what are you going to do about this? You know, how are you going to create a new life without this person, without this dynamic? And it's so important in that moment to honor the grief that you're feeling, to allow the sadness to come up so that you can recognize what was, but instead of looking at it as a loss, it's looking at it as a who did you become as a result of that experience? What did that dynamic or that person or that experience offer you? And here's the biggest one. What did they prepare you for in your future? You know, when we lose people, it causes a hole. It's like a gaping hole in the dynamic of our life, in the aspect of who we thought we were. And that's really what grief is how can I go on without this dynamic, without this person, this partner? And what the universe is saying right now in extreme abundance is if you're here and if you're still here, you're meant to go on. It's time to take stock of your strengths and of your weaknesses. Your weaknesses may be that you're fearful, that you're nervous to go on because you don't feel like you know who you are without that person or without that dynamic. But if it's ended, it's because you're meant to find out. You're meant to explore in a new way. And instead of proceeding with fear, you're being asked to reserve judgment. Because when you are not allowing the grief to pass, you're bringing judgment into your future. You're choosing the judgment that says, I can't go on without these people. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what I'm going to do. But that's the simple truth. You don't know what you're going to do. But as a human being, you're meant to explore your potential. And the whole point, that's the whole point of existence. The whole point of your life here is to explore your potential. And so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to encourage you that allow yourself to honor what came before, but don't let it stop you from exploring what's meant to come. Because this is what humanity needs right now. We need a willingness to participate in spite of fear, in spite of judgment, in spite of not knowing, right? This whole world, the illusions from one side of the globe to another are crumbling. It is going to be an epic 6 months. The entire world is about to crumble. And the world that we know is going to crumble. It has to, because people are suffering and they're not thriving, but there's so much suffering. And what we don't realize is everyone is suffering, even though it doesn't look like it. You know, we've come to judge levels of suffering. You know, my suffering is more than your suffering. You know, I mean, we have conversations like that all the time, right? You know, someone tells us how sad they're feeling or what huge challenges and trauma they're going through. And we either feel bad for them or we jump in there with them. And what you're being asked to do is look for the light right now. And I don't mean the shiny white light that's going to save everything, because it's not. You're going to save it. You're going to save you, not because you need to be saved, but because you're meant to guide your own journey and your own path. And how do you do that? By taking one step every single day. Maybe you take 10 in one day. Maybe you don't take one today because today is a trickier day. But I want you to look to tomorrow as a possibility to see more joy. And how do you do that? By grieving, by looking for the joy in your past experiences that you may think you you're going to be lost without. You're never going to be lost without. You have the memories, but more importantly, you have the experiences. And experiences are a million times more powerful, with zero exaggeration, more powerful, right? It's why we know when suffering needs to end. It's why we know, right, in dynamics in the world, we know when things are wrong, when things are being done that are inappropriate, right? I mean, it's no lie. Everything is starting to come out. It's been, you know, it's been really 5 years of consistently seeing one truth after another after another. And it is wearing. It's wearing on the nerves, it's wearing on the senses. And there are definitely days when it's overwhelming, but it's recognition that you're here and you're meant to be here at this time. I know that that sounds, even sometimes when I'm like, okay, Michelle, you know, you're here right now. You're meant to be here. You picked this. And sometimes it pisses me off. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it frustrates me, but it takes me about 15, 20 minutes to work through that. I have that moment. That's my grief. That's my strong emotional reaction that lets me know I'm still here. It lets me know that I still know how to feel. And that's really important as a human being. We're meant to feel. We're meant to recognize the emotions and then we're meant to feel the energy underneath. Because when you feel deep grief, the kind of grief that feels like your heart is ripping open and it's sad and it's vulnerable, those are the moments that you're meant to have to remind you that you're alive and you're here and you're meant to keep going because you can feel. And right now, that's the superpower that humanity needs the most. And so instead of feeling overwhelmed by how much you're feeling, take a moment, take a breath. You can reach out to me, reach out to anyone, but more importantly, reach out to yourself. They're showing me right now one of the greatest gifts you can give is writing to yourself. Just write how you feel and allow yourself to recognize the beauty of your capacity to feel because it is your ability to feel that is going to help you build a new life inside of this new world that we're creating. You know, it's not a woo-woo thing. The fact is humans are energy first. The earth is energy first. Every experience within this universe is energy first. And right now, we're being called to create a new experience for humanity. Humanity. That's every single human in existence. We're being called to create that new foundation. So, what do you want life to look like going forward? Learn from the past, but don't bring the pain and suffering with you. Let it let yourself grieve. Let yourself recognize the sadness. Let yourself recognize the joy and all of the things that didn't fit and didn't work and don't work, but also the things that do, the things you want more of. You know, we have 7 areas of our life that are vital to our success. Your health is number one, your wealth, your family, your home, your vocation, what you do for a living. And it doesn't mean you whether you get paid for it or not, that's not the point. It's what you do to fulfill you as a human being, as well as your spiritual journey. And sometimes those, well, most often those go hand in hand. But right now, your job is to allow yourself to begin to recognize that your true superpower is your ability to feel. You know, we've been taught and trained by every system in existence to ignore how we feel. How many times have you gone to a doctor and said, "This is how I'm feeling," and they're like, "Oh, that's not true," or "That doesn't exist," or "We can't find the problem." How many times have you told someone, I feel this way," and they say, "No, you don't." Your job is to validate your feelings and not your emotions. Okay, this is really important. Emotions are the surface. They are the things we've been taught to feel, whether it's through, media, through the entire entertainment industry. That is where we've learned how to emotionally react. And the education system has taught us how to emotionally react, right? And your job is to restore your ability to feel, which is underneath the emotions. It's the cause of why your emotional reaction came up in the first place. And how do you do that? By honoring it. It's simple. It is really simple. And it's being able to take a deep breath and fall into that moment that says, why do I feel this way? You know, when you do lose someone and you have to go on without them, take a minute to realize why that's so hard. It's because you couldn't, you hadn't yet come to that place where you had created a vision without that person. And now you have to. It's time. It's meant to. And for every human that I have lost in my life, on the physical side, I've gained another part of me back. Change occurs typically very quickly, and it's always change that brings me closer to who I am. So I want to encourage you today to feel a little bit more into you. Even though it seems like you're losing yourself, remember that you're losing the part of you that that other person told you you were, that that other person held you to. And now you have an opportunity to create a new life based on all the aspects from those past relationships that you loved. All of them. Bring them along. But it's also time to remind yourself that the ones that made you second guess yourself or the ones that made you not love yourself enough, you don't have to bring those anymore. It's time for freedom. And it's time to create new experiences and new relationships that are based on truth, love, compassion, respect, purity, joy, and everything else you could possibly dream of. You just have to feel, and you have to allow yourself that luxury. And for me, the easiest way to feel is by writing. It's freedom. And if you don't want anyone to see it, you can rip it up and, get rid of it. No one will ever see it. But it's recognition that you took the time to see it. And that's the most important part because you need to put yourself first. You need to allow yourself to feel what you're feeling because that's how you're going to heal. That's how humanity is going to heal. Healing is restoring balance. And it's time because we're seeing what happens to ourselves, to our relationships, to our physical bodies when it's not balanced. The whole world is breaking down because of a lack of balance. And it's time to resurrect truth and balance and movement and joy. And you're the key. I know that sounds hokey sometimes, but it's really true. Anyways, I love you. And I know this is a big ask, and I'm just going to ask you to share one thing about you that you love below. Have the courage. I want to know. I want to hear it. Please share it. I love you so much. Have such a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this conversation, learned something, or received any benefit that you believe will improve your life, subscribe to our channel so I can serve you better by attracting unique guests and starting even bigger conversations. If you know you're meant to change the world, head on over to michellevickers.com, where innovators and thought leaders go for guidance, wisdom, inside information, and support they can trust. Until next time, stay curious.